talk now. This MMA, what we talking about? Yeah, you tuned into the pod now. Gonna be hard for you to stop now. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in.
Welcome back to another episode of Caged In. I'm your host, Chris DiCarlo. Got a very special guest making his return to the show. It's my man, Giannetti. How we doing, brother?
Doing good. I'm feeling real good. Weight's good. One of those camps where it's like everything's going perfect, so let's keep the ball rolling.
Exactly, man. Love that. I know that you were just out in California. You're back home for a little bit. You're going to be going back out to California soon. So I appreciate, in the midst of your busy schedule that, carved out a little bit of time to come talk to me, man.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. It kind of worked out perfectly. I got a wedding this weekend, so fly home, do that. I got time for you. Still training while I'm home, and then right back to it.
Hell yeah, man. Love to hear that. All right, let's get into it, man. You are 14-4-1 as a professional, the Cage Titans current lightweight and welterweight champion. Big fight coming up at Cage Titans 61 versus Michael Dufort on September 23rd. Before we get into that stuff, man, it's been a little bit since you've been on the show, so let's catch up a little bit, get into the stuff that we've missed since the last time we spoke to now. In the midst of that was Cage Titans 58. You were booked versus Luigi Vendramini. That fight, unfortunately, gets called off last minute. Can you kind of paint the picture there and kind of tell us what happened with that one?
Yeah, man, it was going perfect, and then it was just like an absolute shit show. It was one of those things where, going into fight week, I was, I think, like to the dot, 2 pounds heavier than what I normally prefer to be. I did end up missing a week of training while I was out there, and then weight cut still was going great. Got in the sauna, did my thing, weight's coming off. Day of weigh-ins, I think like a pound off. We get in the sauna and I'm not sweating as much, but I'm sweating. I'm like, it is what it is. And then, you get out in between sessions, you get a little nauseous, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm like a little nauseous, get a little phlegmy. So I go to like spit it up and it's a little bloody. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. Keep sweating down. I get down to like 0.2 over, and they're like, you got to come to the weigh-ins. It's getting to that time. I'm like, all right, I head down there, and they're like, you're 0.2 over. And I'm like, all right, I'll go cut the rest. It is what it is. So I leave. I go back in the sauna. Not a bead of sweat's coming out. And I'm like, I was like, it was slow, but I was sweating. I was like, this is weird.
Right.
So I'm sitting in there trying to get a sweat in. I finally start breaking a sweat, and they're like, hey, you're out of time. You got to come check your weight again. I'm like, all right, no problem. Show up to the hall. My girl puts the car in park, and I get a nosebleed. And I don't get nosebleeds. Anybody that's seen me fight, even when I'm getting hit or I'm cut, whatever, I never get nosebleeds. And so, like, I thought my nose was running. It was a little cold out, and I just wiped my nose, and my whole hand was red. And I looked at her like a little kid in the middle of the night. I looked at her, and I was like, and she goes, "You don't get nosebleeds." And I was like, "I know."
Yeah.
So now we're just like, we're stuffing my nose with tissues. We go into the hall. I told him, I was like, I like, give me a little bit more time. Like, I can bang out 0.2 pounds, like whatever.
Mhm.
And then I get in there, and all of a sudden I'm just like nauseous, like not like heat wave coming out of the sauna nauseous, but just nauseous. And I was like, in my head, because I'm messed up individual, I was like, let me go throw it up. Like if I gotta throw up, I gotta throw up. I'll be on weight.
Yeah, exactly.
So I go into the bathroom, and at this point I come into the hall, and everybody's like, "You look like shit." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm cutting weight, guys. Thanks."
Right.
So I run into the bathroom, and I start throwing up blood.
No.
And now the whole toilet's red, and I'm like, what is going on? Turn around, it's coming out the other end too. So now I'm sitting in the bathroom like I'm dying. I don't know what's going on. I come out of the bathroom. The hall was warm. People are like sweating. They're taking their hoodies off and stuff. I'm in there freezing. I start getting the shakes. Told Shawnee, I was like, I need you to go grab my jacket from the car. I need a blanket. And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, it's so cold in here. I was like, I cannot sit still. Now the doctor's looking at me, and he's like, something's not right. And then everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. And then when I told her that I threw up blood, she was like, no, I don't care. We're going to the hospital.
Right.
And we really didn't even tell anybody. The doctor was like, you're not okay. And I was like, I know. And then he was like, you can't be fighting like this. And I was out. I was gone. And I had people text me like, where are you? What's going on? I told Paul Ver, I was like, Shawnee told Paul Ver,
Right.
like, hey, he's not fighting. Like, something's going on. It's not all right. Went to the hospital, ER, and we had called the heads that got me in like pretty quick. And they told me that I had a stomach ulcer, which was weird to me because I had one like 6 or 7 years ago. I was training 2 times a day. I was drinking way too much coffee and working overnights. And so when they had said that, I was like, no, I only drink 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day max. Like I can't just get an ulcer. And I explained to them I was cutting weight and stuff, and they were like, "Oh no, you re-irritated it." And I didn't understand. Apparently, ulcers don't just go away; they scar over,
Mm.
which I wish they would have told me 6, 7 years ago. But so yeah, so it scars over, and that 2 pounds heavier than I wanted to be must have been just enough to irritate that scarring and open up the ulcer. And they had told me, because I told them originally, I was like, I'll go cut the rest of the weight, whatever. Even after I
Yeah.
was like getting the shakes, and they were like, no. But when I was at the ER, they told me, they were like, if you had gone back in that sauna to finish the weight cut and had somehow lived, you would have never fought at 55 again if you were to ever fight again.
Mm.
Um, and so that was kind of like a step back of like, damn, like, I always say like I'm ready to risk it all, but like I really was risking it all.
Yeah, that's scary, man.
And Shawnee was pissed because I told her how like a couple days before, like I was throwing up a little bit of blood. And then they gave me some IV bags, and they were like, "You're gonna feel like you never stepped in the sauna." And I was like, "I don't know, lady. Like I'm dying here."
Yeah.
And sure enough, they gave me 2 bags of fluids, and I felt like $1,000,000. My stomach was still a little upset, but compared to what I was like, I'll go fight right now. I'm fine. Everybody's like, "Shut up. Go sit down." Um, it was tough, man, because then like I felt so good to a point, that day, like the day of Wayne's when everything happened. That night I felt great.
Right.
Still obviously had an ulcer, but then, I went to the fights the next day and had to just like sit there, and like it wasn't like I was sitting there with like my hand in a cast or like in a splint for my knee or something. Like I was
Mhm.
sitting there feeling pretty good minus having the ulcer, and I was just like, "Yep, my fight's off. I got sick." And like explaining it to people while looking totally fine, I was just like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a long story."
I'm sure that was tough, like having to have that conversation a million times. People seeing you in the hall because you always, whenever you're not fighting, you're always in the hall, and you always have people coming up and like conversating with you and whatnot. But the fact that you were supposed to be on that card that night, but instead you're sitting ringside watching it, I'm sure that was tough on the mental, just for you as a person and as a fighter, and then having to keep having that conversation over and over again must have been tough too.
Yeah, 100%. And like honestly, I wasn't even gonna go just because like it was one of those things where like one, I'd already started getting the hate online. They're like, "Oh, look, he missed weight." And I'm like, "Actually, I'm in the ER."
Yeah.
But it was also one of those things of the like if like I said, if I walked in there in a cast, or like, I was limping on crutches, I'll walk in there all day and show my face. But like to look 100% fine, but just know I'm not, like I didn't want to show my face, but Shawnee was like, "Do it. Like you're gonna be mad if you don't go. Show your face, tell the story as many times as you want. Like it's gonna suck, but you'll feel better." And I did feel better afterwards, but it definitely was hard.
Yeah, for sure, man. I can only imagine. Unfortunately, you don't get to fight that night. The card was set up to be, an amazing night overall. But we're looking forward to seeing you get back in there again real, real soon. Another thing that happened since the last time we talked, man, you made an appearance on the Looking for a Fight show that just, came on recently. They filmed it a while ago, and it took them forever to put it out. I don't know what happened there, but they just recently put it out within the last month or so. We saw you on there meeting up with Dana White over at Peter Walsh's gym. Can you just kind of tell us about the experience of seeing Dana again, talking to him, and if you can kind of fill us in on anything that happened there?
Yeah, so I didn't even realize that it took them that long to post the episode, because I thought I remember them posting clips of it maybe like right after I had seen them. So then a couple weeks ago, my phone just started blowing up like, "You were on TV, you were on TV." I was like, "What the fuck did I do? Why am I
Yeah.
on TV?" I'm like, "Am I gonna be on Channel 7 News or
Yeah,
something?"
right.
But yeah, no, it was cool when it happened. Me and Mike De Silva went up there, and Peter Welch's gym is sick.
Mm,
Peter Welch is such a good dude. Everybody there was awesome. It was a real cool event. And then, seeing the boss again, it was just really cool. He remembers me, he remembers the show and stuff, and we were talking. And I did give him those tickets to Cage Titans. Luckily, he didn't come because I
yeah,
did end
right.
up getting sick. So I guess everything literally does happen for a reason. But it was the same as it was 5, 6 years ago. He's a good dude. He likes me. There's no ill feeling between either of us, obviously.
Hmm.
But there's, for all the talk, that negative talk that he gets online, and the amount of times people are like, "Why doesn't he like you?" Da 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 da. For me, I've never had a bad conversation with him. Never had a bad experience. It's a business, man. Dana doesn't make literally every decision. Every time
Yeah.
we've ever chopped it up, like we've always had a good conversation. You can watch it. We're sharing a laugh. Like it's a good time. But yeah, it was really cool. I told him the same thing I told him right before I got on the Ultimate Fighter, and I bumped into him at one of the UFC cards. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna be working for you soon." And he was like, "All right, I'll see you soon." And then I saw him at this one, or that event, and I told him, I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be back soon." And he was like, "All right, can't wait." So just putting it out there, making it happen.
For sure, man. I mean, nonetheless, it was cool to see you on there. Anytime that we get to see you kind of you brush shoulders with Dana and, your face pops up on, UFC related stuff, man, it's always exciting. And it kind of, gives the fans something to look forward to for like once you finally do get back in those shorts and back in the UFC doors, man. It's going to be awesome for sure. Another big thing, probably the biggest thing that's happened since the last time we spoke, man, you and Shawnee are finally engaged.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
saw
sir.
the engagement video online, man. So first and foremost, congratulations to you
Thank you
guys.
very
Super
much.
happy for you. Can you, tell us a story about the engagement? How'd you set it up? I know there was a Pokemon card element involved there, which is, I'm a Pokemon guy myself. So, can you kind of fill us in on the story there? Kind of how'd you set it up and how'd you pull it over on her? And was she surprised or was she expecting it?
So it was actually funny. I think it all worked out perfectly. She wasn't expecting it at all. Before it had actually happened, probably like the weeks prior, she got a little suspicious for like half a second.
Right.
So basically every year her parents go down to the Cape and they stay at their buddy's house for the week and we all come down for a couple days. And it like to me like that was the perfect spot. I was like, all right, this is where I want to do it. I had ordered the ring. I got her dad's blessing. I told her sister. And it's one of those things like when we take our dog for a walk at the park, like we're on Pokemon Go all the time still,
Mhm.
like battling gyms. We go grocery shopping every once in a while. We'll grab like a pack of Pokemon cards, just like open it up, see what we
Yeah,
get.
for sure.
So I was like, that's it. That's the one I want to do. So now I'm sitting here like, how am I gonna do this? And I just Googled it, like thinking maybe like it's gotta pop up. And I just looked up like Pokeball, engagement ring box.
Mhm.
First thing that popped up online, I was like, boom, I'm getting it. It's got
Yeah.
lights in it to like light it up. I was like, oh, perfect.
Hell yeah.
So the ring was ordered, the box was ordered, and then I was trying to figure out if there's anything more I could do. So I like Googled online like cards and stuff, and there was like ones you could pay for, and I was like, nah, screw that, I'll make it myself. So I went online and I just got like a template for like a pink Pokemon card. I put the picture of the ring in the Pokeball as like the picture,
Mhm.
and then the Pokemon name was like, "Will you marry me?" And then I just put like some corny little stuff at the bottom. And then what I did, this was the hard part, is I bought 3 packs of Pokemon cards, and because I YouTubed how to do this, because people do stuff like this, like they make special cards for people,
Right.
and I was trying to open it in a way where I could reseal it. So I ripped open the first 2. I tried, but I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
Ended up ripping them down the middle, and then the third one I finally opened like a bag of chips just from the
Mhm.
sides, and I pulled all the cards out and I slid hers like to the second to last, so she'd have to go through the whole thing
Mhm.
and then put it in there. And then I got a glue stick and I glued the ends. And then I never thought of this until I YouTubed it. I ran a bottle cap over it to get like the ridges
Oh
back on the
yeah. Hell
edge.
yeah.
So like then after I let it dry, it would look legit. Like you would never know. So now I had to just remember like which one is hers, so I don't give her the wrong one. So
Right.
then I put like a little nick on it in the corner with a marker.
Mhm.
And then we were down the Cape one day and we were like, oh, maybe we'll go out for dinner tonight. Like, we'll go have a nice big dinner. And she was like, that's kind of random. And I was like, no, no, like, we'll go out because we always go out one night. And we just
Yeah,
hadn't
for
gone
sure.
yet. So then one of the guys was like, oh, I got to grab whatever from the liquor store. And I was like, oh, I'll come with you. So we went and I went to Stop and Shop. I grabbed an additional pack of cards. And when we
Mhm.
went back, I was like, hey, I grabbed us some Pokemon cards. And she was like, why? Like, we're on vacation. We're not like
Yeah.
grocery shopping. I was like, I don't know. We were at the store. Why not?
Yeah.
So then I was like, all right, this one's hers. So I was like, here you go. So I opened mine and I was like, oh, look what I got. And then like she kind of put hers to the side because she's like getting ready to go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, open your cards, open your cards. She's like, I'll open them later. I was like, just open your cards. So we're sitting out back and she's opening them and she doesn't like notice. Everybody's kind of like low key, like recording
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And she's like going through and there was like a couple cards. She's like, oh, that's cool. And then like she gets to the end and it didn't click at first. She just saw like the "Will you marry me?" and she thought it was just like I don't know, like a marriage themed Pokemon card or something.
Right.
And she literally just like looks at me. She's like, "Why did?" And then I dropped to a knee, and it was instant waterworks.
Yeah.
Yeah, she definitely didn't see it coming. So it was 10 out of 10 pulled off. Everybody that was down the cave with us helped out. It was friggin' awesome.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome. Like I said, super happy for you guys. Definitely a unique engagement too. It's not one that you see, all over the place every time. So definitely something that was super cool. As someone that knows you personally now and meeting Shawnee a bunch of times at the fights. Definitely cool to see that moment for you guys, man. So congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Of course, man. All right, let's get into some fight talk, man. Fight camp is going well over there at AKA in California. We talked about it off camera before, man. You drove over there in the van,
Yes.
traded in the bus for the van.
Yep.
How was the ride this time? Do you feel much better now about having the van? Do you miss the bus?
I do miss the bus. It's just because I built it from the ground up. So it's
Right.
like that sentimental, like I did this. At the same time, I don't miss the gas. During COVID or right after, it was great. Gas was cheap. Nowadays, it was just time to downsize. Just made it easier to get through California because of the cities and saving so much on gas because camp's already expensive as is. So the van's been really nice. Drives great. Has just enough space, nothing crazy flashy or extra, but it's exactly what I need. It does its job. And, I got it for a steal. It's got low mileage. I think it has like 59,000 miles. So that's
Oh,
something
hell
that's going
yeah.
to be sticking around for a while.
Definitely, man. Definitely. That's awesome. I know you did the whole van tour when you got it. I was surprised that you got rid of the bus, man. I know how you attached to that thing that you were.
I
But
know.
I'm sure it takes up a lot less space in the parking lots and whatnot too. It's probably a lot easier to drive when you're making a cross country trip like that as well.
Yeah, it's way easier. And like I said, the big thing for me was like getting through some of the cities in California is easier. And then the gas. I use way less gas in that thing as compared to the bus.
Yeah, man, that's clutch as fuck for sure. All right, man. You were just out in California. You're back home now. You're going back out to AKA. Overall, man, how has the fight camp been going for you? How's the body feeling? How's everything going for you over there at AKA?
Camp's been going great, man. We've got everybody over there, like either just fought that first week I was there or has fights coming up. So we're all getting that work in. Usman's fighting at Bellator 300 against Brent Primus.
Mhm.
So I've been getting a lot of work in with him. And it's been awesome. Ahead of this camp, before I originally went out there, I got down in phenomenal shape and didn't really have to play catch up like I normally do when I started camp. So that was really nice. I'm already in shape, getting into better shape. The weight's down. I'm super light for this far into a fight camp, but I'm also keeping my strength and keeping my endurance, which has been a major key. I've just been focusing so much on the nutritional side of things and the recovery, as opposed to like just the training. Like I already know I'm putting in the work. I already know I'm working super, super hard. So now it's making sure my body's taken care of. And then even prior to my fight camp, just like the mental side of things, taking care of my mind. And it's all kind of just adding up to like a perfect blend.
Awesome, man. I love to hear that. You mentioned Usman. Who else is over there at AKA right now that you're kind of mixing it up with and getting rounds in with?
So we've got Usman, he's fighting soon at Bellator 300. We got Daniel Allen. You guys can see him on the Contender Series the Tuesday before my fight.
Nice.
We've got my boy Mose out there. We've got Adam Piccolotti, who just signed with PFL. I've been getting working with him. We have Gaston Bolanos. He was in Bellator for a bit recently, just made his UFC debut. We've got one of Usman's buddies, Amaru, just a whole room of killers. And then, of course, we've got Coach Kane Velasquez is out
Mhm.
there. I've been at DC's Wrestling Academy a couple days a week getting work in. So it's been really cool, having such an elite army of guys behind me and pushing me every day.
For sure, man. How was it, seeing Kane back at the gym, man, and getting work back in with him again? How has that been since he's been back?
Amazing. He dove headfirst into that coach role and he's thriving and he loves it and we all love it. He's an amazing coach and it's just he flips the switch so fast from like push, 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 like as hard as you can, get better at all this stuff, work your ass off, and then as soon as practice is done, it's goofy Kane. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like we're talking about food and cars and all this stuff. Like you wouldn't even know he just tortured us for the last hour and a half.
right.
But yeah, so it's really awesome. He keeps the vibes up while pushing us all of practice.
That's awesome, man. I love to hear that. I know you're heading back out to California to continue that work. When does your fight camp wrap up, and when are you planning to make that trip back to Massachusetts?
So next Thursday will be my last day in California, and then I'll bang out the drive home, and then I'll be home for all of fight week.
Awesome, man. All right, let's get into it then. Cage Titan 61, big one coming up, man. Lightweight title defense versus Michael Dufort. This one was announced live at Cage Titan 60. They had you guys both in the cage to announce this big matchup. You had the Bruin Skeletor jersey on. Dufort came out with the Montreal Canadiens jersey on. It seems like this is kind of the theme that this fight's being built on, is the Boston versus Canada rivalry. Was this something that you were privy to before the announcement, or is this something that you're just kind of riding with and rolling with the punches on this one?
I had no idea. Paul Beard asked me. He was like, "You should bring like a USA flag or something to the fights," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll do that." And then I was like, "Honestly, I'm just going to the fights to have fun. Carrying a flag all night, like I don't feel like it."
Yeah.
So I just tossed on my jersey, and then he happened to show up in a Canadians jersey, and I love my Boston sports, so I'm like, "You just took it a whole nother level of personal for me. Like it's not just marketing. Like you want to make it Canada versus Boston or LA versus Boston. Like all right,
Yeah.
I'll defend the homeland."
For sure, man. I love that. The video that they cut up for the announcement, you two being in the ring, was electric. Everybody is just even more invested in, Jojo Giannetti's next fight, just because the person that's standing across the cage from you as well is doing equal amount of work selling this fight. So this one is going to blow the roof off the hall. That's for sure. You're going to have that hometown crowd behind you 100%. Looking at the matchup though, how do you feel about the matchup versus Michael Dufort? And where do you see your strengths and weaknesses versus this guy?
Honestly, I feel like he's overhyped for sure. I think he's really good at what he's really good at. I feel like I've fought better guys than him already. I know I train with better guys than him every day. I think he's just one of those guys where, if you let him fight his fight, he's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't let guys do that. Everybody fights my fight. And the problem for them is my fight is everywhere. You know what I mean? I've been working my wrestling so much, been working my judo, I've been doing jujitsu every single day. My striking is on a completely different level. And like I've been telling people, every tool in my arsenal is going to be used this fight. Like you're not going to see this fight and go, oh, look, he's just boxing with him, or look, he's just wrestling, he's just grappling. Like you're going to see every single tool that I have, either by choice or he's going to bring it out of me. But like my favorite thing about the fight isn't even the skill set, it's that mentality. Like, Dufort's selling this fight up the whole thing, but it's because he wants to win. He's here to win. And this is like his big break. He wants to sell this fight. I'm just doing my thing. Everybody around here already knows me. There's no really selling the fight more so for me.
Mm.
You just see my name and you either love me or hate me at this point. But knowing that I have an opponent that's going out there to put everything on the line, it excites me. It gets me out of bed. It gets me into training, and it keeps me excited throughout training. So very much so, like this could be the one, like everybody's been saying about my last few fights. I don't put too much weight into that. I'm just gonna go out there and get the job done.
Oh yeah, man, I love to hear that. Dufort's last win was over Luis Pena, a friend of yours from you guys' time on The Ultimate Fighter. We know you like to, find ways to make things personal. We already have the Boston Kent Montreal thing. Does this kind of add a little bit of fuel to the fire as well? Trying to get
Oh
this one
yeah,
back for your boy.
100%. It's one of those things where I really feel like Dufort's demeanor is like and I don't know him personally, but he's just got a bully demeanor, and he's definitely got a bully fight style. So to see him go out there and kind of like, for lack of better words, like run through and beat one of my friends, it's just one of those things where it's like I'm not the one. I never have been the one that's going down without a fight. I'm never the one that you're just gonna bully and come out unscathed. So let's see if he can go in there and bully me like he wants to. I doubt it.
For sure, man. We know that you have a tested resume. You take the toughest fights that you can get. Where does Dufort kind of rank on that list as far as toughest guys that you fought?
Um, Honestly, and this might change after fight night, but as of right now, he's really not towards the top. Like I said, it's such a weird matchup because it's such a good matchup for the fans and for me, but I feel like it's one of those just don't let him fight his fights, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
He trains with world-class guys. Like he trains with Aubin Mercier, who also fights for PFL, won the PFL a couple years back.
Hmm.
So he's also training with high-level guys. In his fights, I really haven't seen anything where I'm like, "Oh wow, I've never seen that before in my life."
Right.
So nothing really stands out about him, but obviously he gets the job done. So it's like that catch 22 where it's like I don't look at his fights and go like, "Oh wow, like I got to get somebody and bring them in to emulate that style." I've seen everything that he has to offer. I've just never fought him. I've never fought somebody that, fights that fight. So, that's the exciting part for me, a winner's mentality. It's a lot of and it's intangibles, it's a
Hmm.
lot of not physical things that excite me about this fight.
Hell yeah. Looking at the matchup, man, it's obviously a very exciting matchup. Um, you're going to go in there, handle business in September. The next major, box to check on your checklist is to get back into the UFC. Do you feel like a win here is what's going to punch your ticket and get you back into that next step?
Honestly, I feel like that's kind of been the question after my last few fights.
Hmm.
I feel like out of my last 5 fights, if there was one, this would be it. Between, like I said, he's got the good records, he's beating good guys, he sells the fight, everybody's talking about it. If somebody took these fights and said, which one of these will be the one that gets you in the UFC, I would say, yeah, this one. But I really haven't gone into this fight camp with that. I've gone into this fight camp with, it's a fight and you need to win, point blank, period. And so that's what I've been training to do. Would I be super surprised if I beat him and then get the call? No. Would I be super excited? Hell yeah. So right now it's really just get the job done and then focus on all the rewards afterwards.
Definitely. And I know people have been talking about this fight on social media a lot. A lot of people have kind of marked this as a fight that they would have liked to seen on the Dana White's Contender Series this summer. Was there ever any communication between you and the UFC team about getting on this roster of Dana White's Contender Series fights? Because I feel like, on paper, looking at your resume, the accolades you hold, that you would have been on the short list to try and, get on the show this summer and try and punch your ticket that way.
No, there really wasn't any communication for that. It's kind of weird too because minus a handful of fights this season, as far as I've seen, it really just seems like a rookie showcase. There's a lot of guys on there 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, and then you got guys like George Hardwick and the Fury FC champ that beat him. I can't remember his name, but those guys have veteran records, have fought plenty of guys. But other than those real handfuls, it's all a lot of rookies. So I feel like I don't meet that demographic as much as people think. Um, so I didn't get on the last season of Tough. Obviously, I missed the deadline because I was in fight camp,
Hmm.
ironically enough. And then, like I said, I don't really think I'm that demographic like people assume for the Contender Series. Whether that means I got to wait for short notice or another season of Tough or just a flat out signing, who knows? But I think my time's coming, and I think that it's gonna be something else when I get signed.
Definitely, man. I've seen you mention the Tough thing a few times online. Um, where do you think you would have fit in on that season? Because it is kind of like that gray area where it's like rookies versus vets. Would you, if you were, let's say you were on that season, would have come in on the vet side, right?
I would think so. And maybe that's why, like, I don't know if they end up contacting people for that season or if it's specifically just tryouts.
Hmm.
But if they did reach out to people, maybe that's why I didn't get the hey, heads up, we're doing this. Because I am kind of in the middle. But I would assume on the veteran team, also for the fact that like I would say something to Connor if he started running off about the Russians.
Right.
Because I just don't. He ain't my actual coach, so I don't care if me and him got into it. As
Yeah.
you can see, Brad and Chandler didn't really see eye to eye. So I'm the same way with Connor. But yeah, I think it would have been really cool. And then, like I had posted online before, it did kind of hit home literally in my heart when I found out the finale was on UFC Boston.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, damn, like they missed out. And that's kind of like where I've had to put my headset at. Not I missed out or like I'm not the one that gets to be on there. I'm like, no, no, the UFC is going to learn that they missed out. Like
Mhm.
not just having me on UFC Boston, but having me on a redemption season of Tough at the TD Garden. They missed out. And I think after this next fight, they're going to go, okay, we can't miss out anymore. We need this kid.
For sure, man. I mean, the storyline right there sells itself. Everybody here was pulling for you to, make some kind of entrance into this UFC Boston world, whether it had been through that avenue or just being on the card straight up. Because we know we even not even like just for you, but even for all the other local guys that we were begging to get somebody on this card, even though the event was still amazing, it just adds like a little bit of extra sauce for us people at home in Boston that they kind of missed out on that one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it was like it was bittersweet too because the card was way better than I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to lie, I didn't think it was going to be a phenomenal card. I don't know if the O'Malley knockout really carried it so much, but the card overall I thought was great. And I saw pictures online from the first prelim to the main event, the garden was packed.
Hmm.
So I think that we really showed the UFC that Boston loves fights, and there was so many people that I saw online that went to their first live UFC or watched their first UFC or traveled for their first live UFC and loved it. And so it's one of those things where I feel like that might have been the biggest UFC Boston card we've ever had. And the only complaint that I saw from people was we didn't have any Bostonians on it. And granted, they pulled Rob Font to fight Sandhagen. Cater's still healing. Goff had his
Hmm.
fight booked. So there's three out the window right there. But I think after that last card, they're going to look back at that and go, okay, no matter what is going on, next UFC Boston, even if we have to sign 7 new fighters, we got to get somebody on this card because every post I've seen about UFC Boston, I just tag the UFC in the comments and go, Boston loves fights. That's
Yeah.
it. Plain and simple. Like if you guys haven't realized it, Boston loves fights, and we love fights with Bostonians even more.
100%, man. I was at the event in Boston. It was an amazing night. I was one of the ones in there from the first fight to the last fight. Obviously, wasn't missing anything in between. But and also a crazy thing that Dana said too, man. But like, this is the biggest TD Garden gate they've had outside of a Boston Celtics championship game. Like that right there is insane. We've seen the, how viral this card has went, because of Sean. If this doesn't give them a reason to, want to come back at least once a year, I don't know what will, because obviously they made a ton of money. It went viral. Everybody's been talking about how great the card was. And like you said, the only complaint was the lack of Boston fighters that we had on it. And another crazy stat that came out during that whole fight week was on the UFC roster, there's only 6 guys from Massachusetts that are signed to the roster. And like you said, 3 of them were already tied up at that point. So it was slim pickings for them on this card. I feel like they had the opportunity to, pick guys from the region to add on to the undercard if they wanted to. Clearly they felt like they didn't need to, but I think that was a big swing and a miss for them there. But hopefully seeing how well the event played out and how much Boston goes hard for their fights, that hopefully Dana's going to, see this and want to make this an annual thing. Hopefully, that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even if it's every other year, just as long as we don't have to wait 5 years every time they come to the Garden.
Yeah.
I don't know the politics behind booking the Garden. I'm sure it's not that easy.
Right.
But, I think if they came every other year as opposed to 5, they would do just as great. The Garden would grow more, the UFC would grow more in Boston, and it would give more opportunities for us local guys. And I think that, like I said, they would come to learn that it's better for them to have more of us.
Definitely agree, man. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, Jojo, I appreciate the time as always, my man. It's always a pleasure getting you on and chopping it up. It's always even better seeing you fight, and we're all hyped to see you get back in there in September, man. Best of luck to you in that one. Go retain that belt, and we can't be letting Boston take another L to Montreal, man. So, you're going to have us riding with you 100%. Before we get you out of here, man, anything you want to leave the people with, anywhere they want you to come find you, shout you out?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's bought merch, the rally towels, ordered tickets from me, all the sponsorships, everything you do for me over at Caged In. I appreciate everybody. That stuff, not just for me, but for every other local fighter, helps out so much. And it's made fight camps like these possible. I say it every time, and I'll say it until, I don't have to anymore. But support your local fighter, whether it's like, sharing, commenting on posts, or it's buying a ticket or a T-shirt or whatever. But other than that, you guys can find me literally everywhere at Giannetti MMA. 2 N's and 2 T's. It's an Italian last name. It will mess you all up. But thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
All right, Jojo. Best of luck September 23rd, man, and I'll see you in the arena.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
Got down for the count and he can't even talk now. This MMA, what we talking about? Yeah, you tuned into the pod now. Gonna be hard for you to stop now. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in.